As a kid, all a nigga wanna have was a Burberry scarf and $3 in my pocket. Instead I got beat with a switch, but I don't give a fuck, but it's on my body. Scars all up on me, but I run around from everybody. Life lesson learned, I better learn from this bitch, nobody. She pushed me around, she didn't give no motherfucks about it. She broke my heart 3 times, but I ain't getting...
Number 7th ranked Cincinnati is going to be taking on UCF. Now, if you are a Cincinnati Bearcats fan, this is the game that you have had circled on your calendar ever before the season began back in the offseason. This is going to be the game that is going to decide if Cincinnati is going to have a discussion that can be made for why they should be the first Group of 5 school in college football playoff history to be included in this upcoming year's college football playoffs. And the reason why I say that this is the most important game that Cincinnati will play all year is because UCF is the second most talented team in the American Athletic Conference. Now, that may sound a little bit weird to you guys because UCF is currently 5-2 right now, and they've lost to Memphis, they lost to Tulsa, but in all reality, UCF has the second most talented roster in the American. And the reason why UCF lost to Memphis and why they lost to Tulsa wasn't because of talent. It was because of, first of all, turnovers and penalties. They had a lot of penalties against Tulsa, okay, and that cost them the game. Okay, they also had a couple of miscues against Memphis. UCF is a talented football team, but they're not disciplined, and sometimes they just come out a little bit unfocused. And when you look at Cincinnati is a team that comes out focused, they're disciplined, and they had their struggles offensively early on in the season. Like, there were questions when it was concerning quarterback Desmond Riddler for Cincinnati. Should he be the starting quarterback for Cincinnati? But over the last couple of weeks, Desmond Riddler has picked up his game tremendously. And when you look at UCF is like the Group of 5 version of Florida or Oklahoma. Okay, they play great offense, but defense is not existent. And for Cincinnati, they're a pretty balanced team overall. Okay, you have a pretty solid offense, and you have the best defense. And out of all the schools in the Group of 5, Cincinnati has the best. And this may be the best Group of 5 defense that I've seen in the history of Group of 5 schools. Okay, Cincinnati's defense is that good. That's why they were able to blow out teams like Memphis. That's why they were able to blow out SMU a couple of weeks ago. Okay, both of those schools have great offenses, and Cincinnati was able to blow them out. Okay, so for UCF, this is a game that is winnable. Okay, because Cincinnati is only a 6-point favorite heading into this game, and that shows you that Vegas does have some confidence in UCF's ability to win this game because of how talented they are. But just because you're the most talented team or you're one of the most talented teams doesn't always guarantee you a victory. And when you look at UCF, it's just that they have been really inconsistent in their losses. Meanwhile, for Cincinnati, I mean, this is a team that is rolling on all cylinders. So for UCF, you have a stud quarterback in Dylan Gabriel, who right now is putting up incredible numbers. 2,774 passing yards, 23 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. He is the best quarterback in the Group of 5. And he is the better quarterback heading into this game. So for Cincinnati, is Desmond Riddler going to be able to, if this game goes into shootout territory, is he going to be able to keep up with Dylan Gabriel? That is going to be the question that remains to be seen. Now, I know that Cincinnati's defense has been really good. They've shut down SMU. They've shut down Memphis. But UCF's offense is a different animal. Okay? UCF has NFL caliber football players at the wide receiver position, at the running back position. The question is going to be, how's their offensive line going to hold up? Because UCF's offensive line has been really inconsistent. They've had a lot of penalties. They had a lot of ups and downs so far this year. So Cincinnati going to be able to take advantage of that. But if this game leans into shootout territory, this is a game that UCF is going to win. You see, when I look at Cincinnati, I think they are the equivalent to Georgia. Okay, Georgia is a team that likes to win games by their defense. They like to run the football. They like to keep games close per se, even though Cincinnati has blown out every single team. But if Cincinnati gets into a one possession game, they feel comfortable about that. But if you're Cincinnati and you're a Cincinnati fan and this game goes into a shootout territory, let's say this is a game that going into the full quarter is like 40-40. Both of these two teams have put up 40 points on each other. That's a game that favors UCF. UCF is equipped to handle games that are shootouts. Meanwhile, Cincinnati, not saying Cincinnati can't win games that are shootouts. I'm just saying that if this is a game that goes to the way of a shootout, I would take Cincinnati because I don't trust Desmond Riddler in a game like this that could go into a shootout. Now, if Cincinnati is able to beat down UCF from the jump and they get out to a big lead early on UCF, then they should win this game. And for UCF, if you want to win this game, you have to make sure that you never find yourself down by more than 10 points. Because if UCF gets down by more than 10 points, this game is over because you can't rely on UCF's defense to get a stop, and you can't rely on them to get a turnover neither. They can't stop the run, they can't get off the field on third down, and they can't stop the pass neither, and they're not great getting pressure on the quarterback. So for Cincinnati, if you're able to go into halftime with a 28-17 lead, then I think you already have this game won. Now, I'm not saying UCF can't come back. I'm just saying that it's really unlikely that UCF comes back from a deficit that big because their defense just isn't reliable. So for UCF, if you want to win this game, you have to be able to limit turnovers and you have to be able to limit penalties. Because for UCF, they're there from a talent standpoint. They can't compete with Cincinnati. They're just as good as Cincinnati from a talent standpoint, even though their defense isn't great. But like we've seen in the past, you can still win even though you don't have a great defense, i.e. look at Florida versus Georgia. All right? Just because you don't have a great defense doesn't mean you can't win in college football, because in college football, we know that despite how great of a defense you may be, you have to be able to put points on the board. And for UCF, that is why they have a great chance to win this game. The question simply is going to come down to execution, and are they going to be disciplined? Are they going to be able to limit the turnovers? Are they going to be able to limit penalties? All right. And another talking point of this game is going to be head coach Luke Fickell for Cincinnati. Now, South Carolina recently parted ways with former head coach Will Muschamp. And now that there is a head coaching vacancy in South Carolina, Luke Fickell's name has came up in that discussion. Now, obviously, Hugh Freeze and Luke Fickell are going to be the two candidates that South Carolina fans are going to be salivating over. Now, I don't know if Hugh Freeze is going to end up getting that job because, first of all, he's going to have to be approved to get that job because of his past when he was the head coach of Ole Miss and all, and everything that went on there, all the scandals and violations that went on. The question is going to be, would the SEC allow Hugh Freeze to be the head coach of South Carolina? So if you can't get Hugh Freeze, the next guy will be Luke Fickell. Now, if you're Luke Fickell, I'm be honest with you, I wouldn't take that South Carolina job because I don't think that South Carolina is a good fit for Luke Fickell. And the reason for that is because I think Luke Fickell is just like, I don't think that South Carolina's program is all that appealing if you're Luke Fickell. Because if you're Luke Fickell, I think that if you were to leave Cincinnati and take that South Carolina job, you will be downgraded because Cincinnati is a better football program than what South Carolina is, and they are a better football program than what South Carolina has been over the last 3-4 years under Will Muschamp. So if you're Luke Fickell, the only reason I leave Cincinnati is if Texas or USC has one of those jobs that becomes available. Then I will leave, okay? Because you could go to Texas and you could win right away. All right, you may take 1 year to, get things in order, but after year one, Texas should be rolling under Luke Fickell. Now, USC is more of a project. I think that's more of a 2-3 year rebuild just because of how poorly Clay Helton has recruited that USC area in California, which I don't know how you managed to not be able to recruit well for USC. But nonetheless, those are the two jobs that I would leave Cincinnati for if I'm Luke Fickell. Anything other than that, I would stay at Cincinnati because Cincinnati is a better football program overall than what South Carolina is. And it doesn't matter how much money South Carolina may throw at you. Like, if you don't want a job, you don't want a job. The money doesn't mean anything. Like, you want to have a place that where the money is good and also you have a good chance to win. I don't really think that if you're Luke Fickell and you go to South Carolina, I don't really think you have a high ceiling there. Because it doesn't matter how good of a coach you are. I mean, eventually, if you go to a school like South Carolina, you do kind of have a little bit of a handicap there, because South Carolina, at best, they will be 11-3, 10-win team. I don't really think that, regardless of how good of a coach Lou Fickell is, they will be to the level of an Alabama that they will be able to compete for a national championship. They may have a couple of years that they're going to be able to compete and win the SEC from time to time, but I think under Lou Fickell, if he was to go to South Carolina, he would be really limited there in terms of the potential of that South Carolina football program. Now, can he elevate them to that next level? Maybe, but I doubt it. That is a reason why Dan Mullen left Mississippi State. I think Luke Fickell taking that job out of South Carolina would be the equivalent to when Dan Mullen was the head coach for Mississippi State, which is why he left Florida, because Mississippi State had a ceiling. So if you're Luke Fickell, I would stay at Cincinnati, and if you are a Cincinnati fan, I wouldn't be too concerned about losing Luke Fickell, because at the end of the day, if you're Luke Fickell, I'm looking at these available coaching jobs, and really the only one that will really intrigue me is if that Texas or USC job was to open up. But for Cincinnati, will Desmond Ridder be able to remain consistent? Now, Desmond Ridder has been on a hot streak over the last couple of games, but he did start out the season a little bit slow. So for Desmond Ridder, if this game goes into a game that he is going to be in the shootout with Dylan Gabriel, he's going to have to be able to step up and rise to the occasion. And Cincinnati, they have a really good rushing offense. They are 12th in college football in rushing yards per game, with 242.3 rushing yards per game that they average per game. And that is an important stat to watch, because for Cincinnati, they should be able to run the ball, control time possession, and they should be able to win this game. So I'm going to take Cincinnati to get the victory. I think they win this game 42-28. I think that UCF is going to put up some points, but overall, I just don't think that UCF's defense is going to be sustainable to the point that they're going to be able to stop Cincinnati. And Cincinnati's defense is good to the point, like, even if UCF does have an offensive explosion, I don't think that Cincinnati's defense is going to allow them to put up or allow UCF's offense to score 40 points. I think that Cincinnati's defense should be able to get a couple of key stops in this game if this game does lead to the direction of a shootout. And I don't think UCF's defense is going to be able to get any stops against Cincinnati's offense. So I'm taking Cincinnati to get the victory. 42-28 is my final score prediction in this game. I'm taking the Bearcats.